Hi, my name is Linda Curran. I'd like to welcome you to the Master Clinician series. Over the past few years, I have had the great fortune of being able to interview many of the luminaries in the field of traumatic stress, and I'd like you to meet them now.
I don't think I really understood the wound of incest well enough. And I didn't know how to, when the person, I could see they weren't getting well because they kept going back to their trauma and to their anger. And I realized that I wasn't helping them make the next step.
Out of self-defense, out of not knowing what else to do, I started teaching her self-regulation skills just to get her back to a place where she was before I started helping her.
Where she could function.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we started working with that. And then so that was the first time I realized that you have to tread so carefully, that you don't go for the pain. That with a trauma survivor, what you're going to do is catalyze flashbacks and more symptomatology than you ever thought was there.
And what that says for trauma work is to be able to identify where that threshold is, where the person would go into overwhelm. And sometimes you don't know where the threshold is until it's happened. And you say, oh, wait a minute, that's where the threshold was, and you know it for next time. And that's where the idea of, toast until it smokes, so you allow arousal to go up. But when you hit the point of overwhelm, back up 20 seconds.
Well, of course it is.
Okay.
And that's what PTSD is.
Say
it's
more.
Replaying the emotions and the somatic experience that's still stored there in memory in the present moment, not in the past. So
It's as if it's happening.
As if it's happening now. So trauma is a corruption of memory. That's number one.
Okay.
It's a corruption of the body's process. The body now keeps coming back to the same patterns of self-defense. And so that person not only will keep remembering it, will experience it, he will begin to experience symptoms in the body parts that never completed what they needed to do.
The one piece of learning I would have people take away is that it is not the events that are the problem. And it has been a tradition in our field. I say we're all children of Freud, so we grew up, as it were, as psychotherapists, revering the sharing of events as a vehicle for healing. In trauma, that isn't what works. And in fact, it often makes things worse, and we start to confuse the events with the people who experience them.
There's a myth about trauma treatment that you have to remember what happened and have an emotional catharsis, and somehow that combination is the cure. I mean, basically it's what Freud and the people before him, actually some of the people before him had a more enlightened view. But this was the idea that is a misunderstanding or a misapplication in trauma therapy, that you have to get the people to remember one horrific experience after another, and to have often violent reactions with those memories. And that's not the answer. Again, the answer is to be able to come out of where the person has become frozen physiologically. Now, as part of that, the person will generally recall images and begin to process images and feelings, but in a much more gentle way.
And what the polyvagal theory brought to the trauma community was an understanding that there is another defense system. It's not just a fight-flight system, but a defense system of immobilization. And once the trauma people heard that, their eyes opened up, they got alert, they got happy, they said, well, this fits what we're doing, and maybe this explains why treatments that work well with mobilized systems like extinction won't work well with individuals who've been traumatized.
So the trauma needs to be processed, so you need to be able to go there in some ways. And you need to go there, you can go there somatically, as in somatic experiencing and sensory motor. You can go there in your mind, as in hypnosis. Or you can go there sort of in this interesting hypnopompic state that EMDR induces, where people sort of go there, and then what's so fascinating about EMDR is you set up some process in the mind that people very little talk about very little, and you set up these fascinating associative processes. So you go through EMDR, little pieces of fragments of the past get expectorated in some ways and start being knitted together. And to my mind, that's really the unique thing about EMDR, is this sort of very rapid processing of these fragments.
I also, and this is kind of a crude metaphor, use the metaphor, it's kind of like throwing up. You know, because when you have something stuck in your digestive system and it's causing problems, until it gets out, it's going to cause you difficulty. And I'll ask clients a lot, you know, is it pleasant when you throw up? Well, no. How do you feel afterwards? Well, usually like, you know, it's cleared or it's better. Relieved. Yeah. And so those are some of the metaphors I use a lot to explain reprocessing. And I let them know a lot of times, too, that reprocessing is basically us bringing up the reminder of the trauma, and it gives them a chance to feel the things that they probably needed to feel at the time of the trauma, but for one reason or another they were blocked from feeling it.